All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat,
And I'm Eric.
And I am Stan.
and for some reason, that intro video is not playing the sound. I got to figure that out. But regardless, we got some exciting topics this week. Really, three topics, but one of them is going to take us I think it's going to take a while to get through. So we're going to get into the Pokemon Sword and Shield controversy. Really, it should be plural because there's multiple things people are mad about, but there's one main thing that leaked this week, and we want to get into specifically the issue with what Pokemon are actually going to be in Sword and Shield, and then we'll dive into some of the other controversies as well. And then we also have another separate game from Square-Enix, this time Business Division 1. Last time we talked about Business Division 3, they announced a game that we were speculating could be Final Fantasy 16. But now Business Division 1, the same division that's doing the 7 remake and that did Kingdom Hearts 3, they're going to come out with a new action game. We don't really have too many details about it, but we are going to go over what we have. And as usual, we'll do some pretty hardcore speculation about this. And hopefully one of us gets it right, but it's all fun, right? And then we have a question from Valvedrix, who says, when you form your party in RPGs, do you usually pick them based on their usefulness, stats, and party balance? Or do you prefer picking the people you like the most as characters because you either want to see more dialogue or just enjoy seeing them in your party? So kind of a couple questions in there, but all around the same basic topic. So I have some strong opinions regarding this, so I'm excited to get to that. But before we jump into what we've been playing this week and our other topics, I just want to remind everyone that we are media partners with RPG Fan. Now, if you've never been an RPG Fan, make sure you go check them out. It's rpgfan.com. They are a great source for RPG news, RPG game news. They do soundtrack reviews. They have podcasts. They have their own YouTube channel where they're doing video reviews now. So make sure you go check them out. They have lots and lots of content for you to check out. And they've been assisting us and helping us along the past couple of months. And they've even gave us a game to give us an opportunity to talk about. So it's been a lot of fun being involved with them, and we look forward to the future and other things we get involved with them. So make sure you go check them out, rpgfan.com. So this week for what we've been playing, Eric, do you want to start us off with what you've been playing?
Oh my. I played Undertale and beat it. And
It's a great game.
it is a great game, but oh my, what did I play? Like the game just get what I like about the game so much,
Yeah.
just to start off with it,
Okay.
it feels like it kind of feels like a nightmare. But like in a very weird, eerie way. Have you ever had like one of those nightmares where you just don't know where you are and it's just like really eerie and uncomfortable the whole way? Just like,
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, it feels like that most of the game. And like especially towards the end, where it's just like everything is just so I don't want to spoil it for
Yeah, that's
anything that I can.
one of those games you don't want to spoil, but I know what you mean. At the end, you're kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, what what's going on? Yeah.
It's just eerie and just like weirding me out by the end of it. And by the way, for people who are familiar with the game, I got the neutral ending.
Mm.
I didn't get the other two endings for it. Now they
So
say you want to play through it again the second time to get the true um type of ending thing, which I may do in the future, but I'm not a kind of person to play a game immediately after I beat it. So that may be down the line. But for what I played, fantastic game. Each battle is so super unique from one another. It never gets boring. It never gets repetitive, and they just have the most fun ways of just messing with you. Like you think, oh, I know how to play bullet hell games. I know like how to do this stuff, and they just keep throwing these really wacky things at you. And I just loved every moment of it. Like even when it just like tricked and fooled me, like I loved it. I'm like, it's like I'm not just simply just trying to dodge things. Like they put like different obstacles on me. Um they trick me all the time, like I said before,
Yeah.
and that made the battles so great. What I do regret is that I could have done ways to be more merciful. I did give mercy to certain characters, but I based that off a narrative choice, not um, in the form of a challenge, trying
Sure.
to like give them mercy. I was like, yeah, this person should probably die, and this person's pretty nice. He doesn't mean any harm. I don't want to kill him, so like I make sure I do like mercy on him.
So for those that are not quite sure what you're talking about, basically Undertale gives you the option to talk your way out of battles, or you can just fight traditionally. And a lot of time, basically any battle, you can. There's a way for you to strategically work yourself out of the battle without killing the monster. And so that's kind of what Eric's alluding to here is that he felt like he could have been a little bit more merciful with more monsters as opposed to just choosing specific story characters, right?
Right. There's a consequence to rather if you kill them or grant them mercy or run away from them.
Yeah.
Um, and that affects how the game ends. And that does create a lot of replay value because the game is no more than like that had to be been in like a 8 hour game
Yeah.
or so, like 8-10 hour game. And that's something you easily play over and over, trying to get each different ending.
Yeah. This game is like really compared to the Mother series, or there a lot of people might know the Earthbound, and I'm not the biggest fan of those that wackiness. I think it's just a game design thing that I don't appreciate, and it's not like I hate it. It's just not something that appeals to me. So I was kind of apprehensive about Undertale because it seemed very much in that vein, but man, I played it and I went through it twice. I loved it. Like it's I think 8 hours is just perfect, and it's not like the way the game's built, the when you finish the game, like your prior decisions have the opportunity to still affect another playthrough. So it's almost like the game can continue to go on and forever if you want it to. It's very very interesting. Like this is just a very unique game design. And like you said, each battle is unique because there's different ways you can get through the battle, and the boss fights have little different mini games that you have to do to try to dodge their attacks and stuff. And it's so unique and has so much charm that I just fell in love with the game.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show that an RPG does not need to be like 40 to 50 hours long to be good. It can be this long as you craft it well to work with those amount of hours. And like Undertale is like a perfect example of this, and it's at a and at a good price on top of that. Like
Yeah,
I'd be a little angry if this was like a $60 game,
sure.
but no, it's I think it was like $20 for it or something.
I can't remember.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it has an incredible amount of replay value to it. And like I can't recommend this enough for just like RPG players. I think it's just something you should experience, and I think it's worth every penny
Yeah, I
for
have
it.
a hard time thinking anyone would be disappointed with this game. It's there's very few games that I would say actually moved me recently, and this game actually kind of irked at me a little bit once I went through it, and it kind of propelled me to want to play it again. So strongly recommend it.
Yeah. Now I'll say the final boss that I fought in that game.
Yeah,
Wow. That
that
that just that just went completely off the rails, and it was just like it was just like one WTF moment after another.
you know what's funny about that? And again, I'm not going to spoil it here, but uh, that boss, I had the same reaction almost to the point where I felt like it ruined the game, right? There was for a time where I felt like this is stupid. Like this is ruining the entire game. Like up till now, this was a fantastic experience, and now this is stupid. And then like once I was done with it and I saw what they did with it and like everything, I was just like, that was perfect. That was perfect. That well done. But
You're
like at
just
the
like, shut
yeah.
up, Hat from 10 minutes ago. You don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about, right?
Yeah, freaking noob. Yeah. Yeah, it was good, man. Like it was really really good. There's supposed to be a another, I don't want to say another sequel because it's but it's going to be in the same universe. It's called Deltarune, and I got to play like the demo that he released for free, and it's very much in the same vein. It's a little bit more developed, a little bit more higher budget, obviously, but I am looking forward to playing that eventually when it comes out. So that'll be pretty cool. But
Hmm. I think they have up to second chapter you can
do
play
they?
now.
Man, I don't want to play it like that. I just want to play the whole thing.
That's what I was saying to myself. I don't want to play until it's like completely out.
Yeah. But Stan, what have you been playing?
A game you
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 wanna real
guys
quick?
recommended to me, huh?
You wanna move your camera down a little bit? We're
Oh,
getting the home improvement
oh, okay.
Stan.
Yeah. So,
There you
I've
go,
been
Tim.
playing Dragon Quest 11S on my Switch,
Mm,
and I've made it quite a bit further. I'm about 30 hours in to the game,
nice.
and I just got to the part where they have opened up the sea to me, like the wider sea. I can now kind of traverse the world a bit
Yes.
better. So,
And the music for that is beautiful. I mean, it's a one that's used in Dragon Quest before, but the orchestrated soundtrack to
oh
it,
yeah,
I
when
can
you
listen to it all day.
when you board the ship and the strings just kind of well up at the very start. Yeah, that's my favorite track of the game so far.
Dude, that like
Oh,
having especially with the Switch version and having the orchestra, like I didn't mind the MIDI instruments before in the PS4, like I kind of got used to it. It was kind of nostalgic. But
mhm.
once I listened to the orchestrated version in the Switch version, I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. Like this
Yeah.
this sounds so good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
Yeah.
As far as my overall thoughts on the game so far, I don't know. I'm mostly positive, but there's certain things about it that I just know are not for me. Like, I really don't care for the silent protagonist, right?
Yeah.
But that's what Dragon Quest is. That's what it does. So I can't really. It's a choice like that they made that is just kind of bothers me a little bit, you know. But
I
it's
felt
not to the point where it's like ruining my experience or anything. It's just like I wish this was,
different.
what I prefer instead
Yeah.
of what it actually is. So that I can't really criticize that too much. It's more of just a preference thing.
I felt the same way, to be honest, and I'm not like I haven't played all the Dragon Quest games, but when I was playing 11 in particular, I felt that the story like was resonating specifically with the main character. Like this was about the main character. So I
Mm,
felt for this particular story, it would have made a lot of sense to have a main character that speaks. But at the same time, just like you said, Dragon Quest is all about tradition, and it was a big deal that a lot of people don't realize. For the English version, they actually went back and changed like the design of the menus and stuff because in the Japanese version, they actually had the very retro, like black and white, like it was like an
mm,
NES game, right? But
mm.
for Western gamers, they changed that and made it look a little bit more updated, and so they obviously we got the orchestra and everything like that. So like even getting that much for the Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest series was, I think, kind of a, surprising, I guess. I mean, having a Dragon Quest with a character that actually speaks, man, I think that would have erupted some some anger in the community. But
Yeah,
I do think for this particular game, if, one thing that would have made it an even better game is I think the our hero deserved to talk for
yeah.
me personally.
This is the only other game I've played besides this one for Dragon Quest is Dragon Quest 8, and that's also like a very common one that a lot of people have played. So I'm not like a veteran or anything of Dragon Quest, so I'm a
Mhm.
little reluctant to like criticize anything that bothers me, I guess, like a little too hard, right?
Right.
Because I know that, like you said, this is a series that very much doesn't rock the boat, right? Like they know what they do and they know what they do well, and for the most part, the series stays the course, right, on that type of experience.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people are looking for in their JRPGs, more of like a, simple combat system, traditional hero's journey kind of story, right? And so why fix it if it isn't broken for most people, right?
Yeah. Eric, how do you
Mhm.
feel that Stan hates Dragon Quest XI?
Oh. Well, I hope you all enjoyed having Stan on the podcast, folks, but you ain't going to see him next week. We don't take haters around here.
This is a purely positive podcast. We're never negative ever.
We've never said anything mean about
We're always
a
positive.
certain company, right?
We're always positive as long as you agree with us.
We're positive about our opinions. Anyways,
But yeah, I mean, it comes down to a taste thing. I can't ever tell someone that they're wrong for not liking a silent protagonist. Just me personally, I don't think it affects the story negatively. I think they still bring enough expression to the character to warrant and know what he's feeling or thinking in the scene. Personally, it wouldn't upset me if they ever decided to make the silent protagonist talk or anything. Maybe Japan may not like it, but I think I'd be open minded to it, especially since how stronger the narrative in Dragon Quest is stronger than it's ever been. So if you took away the silent protagonist type of deal, then like I said, I don't think it would upset me just due to the nature of how, like I said, how stronger the narrative is. So I don't blame people for thinking like that. It personally doesn't bother me though.
yeah. Stan, I will say that, and I know you said you've been overall like overly enjoying it, but I will say that I felt like the game was good in a lot of ways, but it was kind of like it kind of was slow, but it was this happy go lucky, very I don't wanna say predictable, but very uh, typical Dragon Quest experience, but done really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I got with the game. And then if you just keep sticking with it, like I'm telling you, like it's gonna keep getting better and better and better, and it gets really really good.
It takes
Well,
some twists and turns that you really don't expect. And when you got the ship, I think you're pretty soon gonna be jumping into one of my favorite quest lines in that game. And I thought it was one that just hit me in the feels pretty hard.
Yeah,
yeah, I get the sense that the game is kind of like opening up at this point. Like it's starting to veer a little away from well, what's the best way to put it? Like early on in the game, it feels like the short stories that you experience, like they're very
world
um,
building.
world building, but also kind of like fairy tale, like tropish, I guess you could say a little bit.
Yeah,
But it's not in the way that makes you feel like, oh, this is dumb, or something. It's like it's leaning into it so hard, right? That it's just like owning it, right? And it's just being
yeah,
like, no, this is what the story is about right now. And it's like, yes, it has like, the chosen one hero and okay, spoilers real quick. Spoilers for the next uh I don't know, 2 minutes. Like the foolish prince, right?
hmm
The hero's hometown is destroyed. The world tree at the center of the world, Yggdrasil even, which is like that's often what it's called. I think it's called that in a few other games as well. But it doesn't the game doesn't really care that it's like these are like uh tropes, I guess, of the genre, because it's like it, it knows that it's the traditional JRPG, right? And so
right.
it's just using all these things to really drive home what it wants, the story sequences. And I have gotten to the part, there's this kind of mermaid quest, which is what I'm on right now. I don't know if that's the one Eric was referring to. Maybe it's the one after that, but
I that particular one, I really enjoyed that one.
yeah, that's where I am currently.
Yeah,
But yeah, it really like, I don't know how else to describe it other than it just leans into to the tropes. And these sorts of things, if you were playing like a more serious game, right? Like if you were playing a Final Fantasy game and the plot was like, oh, you're the chosen one, and like
The
30 minutes
warrior.
into the game, like the main character's hometown is destroyed, you would just be like, oh no, like not again, like. But
Yeah.
with Dragon Quest, it's more I don't know. The tone of the game is like it's for kids, right? Like I get the sense that it's for a younger audience, but it's also for an older audience that wants to feel like they're young again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter, essentially. Like
Well,
those things are less bothersome than if they were in a different game.
I think that like one thing that, and Eric's the Dragon Quest expert here, so he can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, one theme that I've always gotten from Dragon Quest games was there's this theme of growing up and like living your full life, right? And there's this coming of age type tale that
Hmm.
seems to be prevalent in a lot of these games. And I think that you will find that this game is very similar, where like things are very happy, but the things happen, and like, but the characters coming of age and coming to terms with who they are, right? And
Yeah.
uh, I will say things are all not always going to be happy go lucky. Okay. And
Yeah.
I will say also that one other, it's not even really criticism, but I find it funny. Like when you beat the last boss and you see the credits run, you think, okay, I beat the game. And usually at that point, you're like, do I want to do post game content? Do I not want to do post game content? Dragon Quest XI's post game content is not post game content. It's like
The
the third
epilogue.
act of the game. Like, it's like, I'm serious. It's like 35 hours of like story content. Like,
Oh wow.
there's like full length cut scenes, like 4 minute, 5 minute long cuts. Like I'm like, this is not post game. This is very, very critical. Like it entirely changed my viewpoint of the indie, the game. Like this is not post game content at all. There is
I see.
post game content, like the traditional, like gameplay content. But
Let
so
me put it this way, Stan. You're not even 1/3 done with the game yet.
Oh, but put in 30 hours.
yeah, you have like another 60 hours.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I knew it was a long game going into it, but that means after this one, I'm probably gonna have to do a
Yeah, that's what that's what
shorter
I like
game.
about the Dragon Quest narrative. It kind of works in a sense, like if you want to, I know a certain person we know won't like me saying this, but it's a certain comparison to something like Disney, where like the theme of it is like lighthearted, adventurous, make
Hmm.
new friends and with the same goal in mind and traveling together and everything. And you get to know those characters and like get to enjoy them and and all that certain different stuff. So when the darker moments do happen, you care more that these characters succeed and overcome these dark times.
Yeah,
And Dragon Quest like excels in that so much in their games.
you need that contrast, right? Of when things are at their good and when things are at their bad,
And
their
yeah,
worst.
Dragon
Yeah.
Quest does really good at that in their own way.
Yeah.
That's why I like games like Final Fantasy 5 and 9 kind of like over other ones a lot because they have that like lighthearted, adventurous feeling
That's a
uh,
good point. Yeah.
that makes them like. I mean, it depends on what the kind of story you're looking for. Like, I'm not dissing other stories in Final Fantasy, obviously, but like I do like those type of stories where you get that like high sense of adventure type of deal. And then I also like those games that have like very deep stories, like Final Fantasy 7.
Hmm.
It's just like whatever you're in the mood for. But like I love those type of games. That's why Dragon Quest resonates with me so much.
Yeah, I get this feeling it's kind of the same as like a Pixar movie, right? It's ultimately aimed at kids, but it's also aimed at adults going to the theater with their kids or adults like trying to kind of watch a story or a media, but also get that sense of like what it was like to be a kid, and viewing the story from that lens.
Keep playing
Kind
the
of,
game.
Yeah,
kind of.
gotta keep going.
The appealing to kids type of thing. I'm not entirely sure because we have moments like poof poof in there. that
That's totally censored though.
Yeah, and then we get
Like-
those we get those typical Akira Toriyama like perverted moments and stuff.
Mhm.
Like to the extent of like Dragon Ball sometimes.
Yeah.
But
I
you
love
get one of those
whenever
moments.
they find like a porn magazine or something, and they're like, "Oh, this is the blah, 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 blah," or something like that, and you're like, well, like
Oh, it's called
WTF?
Ooh La La.
You're like, WTF? Like, this is not what I thought this character would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It does do it in a way where, if you're a kid, you don't know that it's a porn magazine, right? I mean, I
Right.
don't know. Like, it's done in a way where it's like everyone's laughing, but you're laughing for different reasons.
Yeah. And I guess I should say, like, by kid, I mean, people aged probably, 8 to 14 or so.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
late childhood, early teens kind of
I think that's
appeal
about
to this
right.
game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Le poof poof.
you have to keep playing it and
Yeah.
keep letting us know. I'm definitely at this point. I'm kind of interested to see what you think going forward, and see if
My perspective
just-
changes at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's already changed a little bit from when I first started playing, because I'll say, like, in the first few hours, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know about this game. But it took me a little bit to realize, like, oh, this is what it's about. Like, it's really just kind of leaning into all these, tropes in order to deliver what it's going for. So,
Yeah, it's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. So this week I've jumped back into Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark, and I'm playing the Switch version. Initially it came out on PC and I think PS4, but I have it on the Switch. And if anyone's not familiar with this game, here, let me get I got a link here. We can get some trailer footage on this game, but basically it's a strategy RPG. It was an indie game, but it's completely hand-drawn graphics. So hold on here. Okay, got that up. All right, yeah, so it's hand-drawn graphics, which is really, really awesome to look at because it just adds a different, unique flavor to what you're looking at. But what's really impressed me about this game is the freaking story, man. Like, this story is so good, and it's been a long time since I've played a game where I felt about this story in a same way I felt about like old Final Fantasy games. But like this, thus far, where I'm at, like the story is still really, really good. It's got a lot of influences from Final Fantasy Tactics. The battle system in of itself is basically foundationally Final Fantasy Tactics. If you've ever played Final Fantasy Tactics and you play this game, you'll notice even things with like the UI and stuff are basically lifted from Final Fantasy Tactics, right? It's very much influenced by that game, but they've gone a step further and really like flesh that gameplay out. Like, in particular, they have this thing, it's called a injury system. So if your characters fall in battle, they become injured, and the more times they're injured, the more impacted they are, and the penalty is it reduces their stats in combat. So like one injury will reduce their stats by 5%, right? A second injury might do like 15%. And the only way to heal these injuries is to have them sit out of combat. So it really pushes you to have more than just your standard party, because maybe your best character, if they've fallen twice in battle, like they're going to be substantially encumbered by these penalties that are enacted upon them. So it's really interesting in that frame of just adding a little dynamic to it that wasn't there with Tactics. But there's also like all sorts of like things that you can do on the terrain. For example, you can shove somebody off a high ledge. If an enemy's near a high ledge, you can shove them off, And by doing that, they'll like, dude, it'll take like 75% of their health. It's awesome. I love doing that. Or you can push them into a river, and a lot of times they'll drown. So you can use your environment to your advantage. Obviously, enemies can do that to you as well. So sometimes I forget about that, and like I'll think I took the upper hand, and then somebody will come push me off, and I'm like, God damn it! Like that just that just killed that character, right? And now they're injured, and I have to go sit them out of battle. But I think the like between the gameplay and like the great music and the art style, again, like this game, the story is just it's really good. It's about this main character whose name is Kyrie, and she's what they call an arbiter, who basically enforces the laws of the land. And the game starts off with her and witnessing a noble murdering a peasant, and the noble's just murdering the peasant because he's like, I'm better than you, basically, right? Like he offended him somehow. And so Kyrie arrests him, and she tries to transport him to a faraway land or a faraway town where this noble might not have influence to get himself out of the court system. And I don't want to spoil it further from that, but like, dude, this thing just keeps taking turns, and I'm like, dude, I'm like legitimately like interested in this plot. I'm just like this is a great game. I highly suggest it. So, really been having a lot of fun time with it. The only thing that's like negative with me, and I think this is something that is just a criticism of strategy RPGs in general, is man, these battles, dude, they can take
Very
a long
long.
time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Final Fantasy Tactics, even Fire Emblem, everything. Like a battle will take like 30 minutes, right?
hmm
So sometimes, if I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I have enough time to play a battle, or if I do start a battle, I'm thinking I can finish it real quick and it lasts 45 minutes. I'm like, God, I didn't want to stay up this late, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only negative or downside, but it's the switch, right? So sometimes in the middle of battle, I'll just turn the switch off, and then I'll just come back and like pick it back up where I left off. Not a big deal, but it is kind of a criticism of strategy RPGs. But
That's kind of just the nature of the beast, right? Like you said, it's a thing of the genre. Like I don't know how you could remedy that unless you had like it's hard to portray like a battle like in that kind of grid-based combat system and still
right,
have it feel like a kind of epic encounter or like a serious encounter, but it could be over in like 10 minutes, like
yeah.
I
Well,
really wish
go ahead.
I keep an eye on this game sometimes. I've never seen it go on sale. Like
Because
it's
it's so good.
$30. Yeah, I mean it's $30 right now, but I've never seen it drop like a penny below that. And like every month or so, I check up on it to see
Dude,
if that and other games have a sale on it.
it's worth it, man. I mean, even when you start the game, it gives you complete control over the difficulty that you want in the game. And I don't mean just like a hard mode, very hard mode, or giving you like 2 or 3 options. Man, this thing gives you like a whole page of options. You can control whether it's injuries, or do you want permadeath? Is that something you want to play with? Or do you not
Ooh,
want that to be a thing at all? Do you want
yes.
Oh, okay. Do you want characters to, yeah, like your enemies? Do you want them to be able to revive their fallen members? Oh, you do? How often do you want them to be able to do that? And there
Mm.
is the standard, like normal, hard, very hard, if you don't want to go through all these things, but you can control like what level of equipment enemies carry. Like you can like literally customize your entire difficulty. Like they've gone above and beyond with the gameplay of this game. And like whoever wrote this story, like just knows what they're doing. So $30, definitely recommend. So,
It's on my list for sure. It
It's
looks
on
good.
my list too. It's been on my list. I just haven't.
yeah. I know I talked about it before, and one of our viewers slash listeners, Kingdom Geekdom, he appears on our Discord every now and again. He actually has his own YouTube channel. You guys should go check it out. Kingdom Geekdom Kingdom Geekdom. I was gonna say .com.
Say
But
that 3 times.
he has a review he actually made of the game, and he told me he bought it after listening to me, and he was like, "Thanks for the recommendation." He really enjoyed it. So there's one person I've convinced. I just need to convince more. So
I think you got 2 more right here. So
boom.
Well, sorry, got Pokemans this Friday.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So let's go ahead and get into that. Um, there's been a lot. Basically, Pokemon Sword and Shield's coming out on Friday. Well, at least me and Eric are going to get it on day one. I know Stan wants to get it, but I think you're kind of sticking with Dragon Quest for now and might get it at a later point, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but we've been following the news closely regarding this, and there's been so much drama surrounding Pokemon Sword and Shield as we get closer to this game coming out. So, just this week, the biggest story that came out, there was a leak that came from a Twitter account. The Twitter account was called Sento Leak. And since this leak came out, Twitter has actually suspended this person's Twitter account as violation of the Twitter rules. So it's pretty confirming, right? They don't do that for everyone. And the leak showed which Pokemon are going to be in Sword and Shield and which aren't. Now, if you remember, we've talked about this before, and one of the things people were already upset about was that they said Sword and Shield is not going to have all the Pokemon. So there's 878 Pokemon now, and only 400 Pokemon are going to be in this game. Whereas in prior games, maybe not all the Pokemon were available like randomly in the world, but you could trade from old games into that game and still have all the Pokemon. So people are saying, well, got to catch them all. I can't catch them all in Sword and Shield, right? So they're upset about that. But this leak showed which Pokemon are actually going to be in this game, and it got everybody upset, mainly because the specific Pokemon that are not going to be in this game are a lot of the ones from the first generation. Some of them you would expect. So if you ever played Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue, you know, you have your 3 starter Pokemons. These are the Pokemon probably most people are familiar with. We have Bulbasaur, we have Charmander, and we have Squirtle. Well, Charmander's going to be in Sword and Shield, but Bulbasaur and Squirtle are not going to be in Sword and Shield, right? So that's not all. I mean, there's a lot. Like we said, 478 Pokemon out of 878 are not going to be in the game. So there's a lot of people saying, I wanted this Pokemon, I wanted that Pokemon. But you know, there's some big ones like Bulbasaur and Squirtle that are not in this game.
The filthy casual Pokemon.
Yeah, so you have that angle, and this has like evolved into people like a movement to boycott Sword and Shield, with people saying things like, well, you know, Game Freak has one of the most successful franchises of all time. How could they not afford to put all your Pokemon in there? People are pointing out that there's a monthly service that they have where people have to pay for cloud storage to hold their Pokemon from previous games. So, like, if you're going to promote this and I'm paying for this, why won't you let me put these Pokemon in the game? And you know, it goes on to people are pointing out that apparently Pokemon in the wild that you encounter now, if you don't have the appropriate badge, you can't even catch them. Whereas before you could catch them, but you wouldn't be able to control them. They're implementing experience share, so all your Pokemon get experience even if you don't use them. So there's a lot of people just saying, I like with this latest development with, you know, only 400 Pokemon in this title, people are saying that they want to boycott it. There's another movement to go the other direction to say, you know, we love Pokemon. Like, let's show our support for Game Freak, and, you know, all these like positive tweets about like how Pokemon has impacted their life and how great of a company Game Freak is. I think we're in the middle on this, but I'm just excited to play this game.
My.
I'm just excited to play this game. I'm just excited to play this game. I want to play it. Dude, I get that people are upset. If you're like a hardcore fan, yes, should Pokemon Sword and Shield at least let you have a majority of the Pokemon? Yes, you should be able to play. Like, I think 500 would have been better if 878 is the total. I clearly
500. Screw that.
Yeah, I'm not going to catch 400 to be honest. So I don't. But like trying to get from their perspective, I get it. Yes, Squirtle and Bulbasaur should be in this game. That's a jackassery decision made by Game Freak. I feel like those are like, if you want to not make people mad, you should have your 3 starter Pokemon in there. But like, dude, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I'm still going to play this game and I'm still going to have fun.
Look, all I can say is to people, besides the fact that you can boycott all you want, but I'm very sure most of those boycotters are still going to buy and play the game. First off, second, I can understand if you don't like something. It's better to just voice your concerns and find productive means to give criticism to the company, which I think is fine. That's perfectly fine. It's like you're always entitled to your opinion, and if you don't like it, and I'm not going to fault you for it. But doing things like boycott, dude, this is Pokemon. Do you think the most popular video game franchise pretty much in the world?
Right.
Do you think a boycott is going to make Game Freak just like reconsider uh
Any
what they do? Now, they can take in criticism from Sword and Shield. You can be like, I wish that Pokemon the Pokédex carried over like it was supposed to, and maybe for the next game they'll make sure to do that. Or if there's criticisms within the game itself you don't like and enough people express the concern, I'm very sure they can at least put it in a fix, or they can put in they can take in these things for the next game they make. But not everything's going to come out absolutely perfect. This is the first time they've gone into HD, and I know I hear the excuse, well, Game Freak has so much money, and like, why don't they just hire more people and they're or invest more money into it? I'm like, well, first off, they are investing money into it, and second, you just can't hire anyone off the street to make stuff for your games.
right.
Like, I don't think I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people to hire, but how many people meet the Game Freak expectations?
Well, here's
Isn't
the
it?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, isn't it the Pokemon company that holds all the money, and Game Freak is the developer that makes the games? So
I'm not exactly sure how that works. They're a second party to Nintendo.
yeah, but there's a company called the Pokemon Company that actually
I think well,
owns the franchise, right?
this is just diarrhea out my mouth right now because I'm just talking. But from what I understand, and I could entirely be wrong. So if you really care about this, go look it up. But from what I understand, the Pokemon Company, I think they're more in charge of the brand itself. So we're talking like comics, like the video games, of course, like the show, like all the merchandise, and
Hmm.
like Pokemon in general as a brand. And then Game Freak is specifically in charge of the video game. But as far as like who is like holding the money, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the Pokemon Company, though I could be wrong because I'm not a huge. I'm a total Pokemon casual, but like when you boot up Pokemon Go on the phone, right? There's no Game Freak or Nintendo on there whatsoever. It's the Pokemon Company, and
Mm,
then Niantic, which is the developer of that game,
right.
and then you're playing the game, and there's no Game Freak or Nintendo whatsoever in any of the credits that I see at
Well,
all. So
yeah.
it I mean, they're not poor, right? They're not hurting for cash or anything, but the idea that they can just kind of do anything and like there's no expense they have to consider is probably just not correct, you
Well,
know.
here's the thing too, and that's a very good point. But I think that it's conceivable that they could have put all 878 Pokemon in this game. But I
Yeah.
think that like the model that they've built here is unsustainable. That every few years they come out with a new Pokemon game and they add however many new Pokemon into the game, and then they have to go and put all the old Pokemon in there. And one of the key things they brought up about this is it's not so much making the Pokemon, besides obviously animations and everything costs money, but it's also trying to balance the game to where you have so many different like party members essentially that all have different moves and
Right.
different weaknesses, but it's all balanced because a lot of people like to compete and stuff too with these games. So like I think that they just looked at this and said, you know what, sooner or later we're gonna have to do this. We might as well do it now, right?
They had
And
to put their foot down at some point.
yeah,
Here's the thing also, is that you have to every one of these models you have to create HD textures for and upscale all of them from a 240p game. The previous one, their
W-
previous game was on a 240p screen. Now they're jumping up to 720p slash 1080p. So they have to create models that are based in that
Game
HD resolution now. And on top of that, for each of these Pokemon they have to balance it out with all these other new Pokemon. So if there's like 800 right now, those other 400 that they didn't include, what they it would have to find a way to make it balance with the other ones. And I'm not saying you couldn't do that, but if you want a game in 2019 and not in 2020 or 2021, then I think these are kind of compromises that had to be made.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to when they said that gameplay was like a serious concern for them. Now, for clarification, I know that Game Freak has said in the past that apparently all the Pokemon that they've had before, they've already gone through the work to make HD versions, like 3D models of all of them. So that way they can just use those to reuse those for future games. So that will kind of cheapen the cost, I guess. They probably wish they never made that claim,
Yeah,
because
that's
currently biting them. Uh, but yeah, I think exactly what Eric was saying is biggest thing is trying to balance that because they have so many different target audiences. They have casuals, like people that got into it at the beginning and might play it every now and again. Then they have the hardcore players that just like really enjoy Pokemon as a series. And then they have these people that like to compete and like go out and like play tournaments and stuff. And they're trying to meet the make all three of these groups happy. And the last thing they want to do is have a game where Blastoise in like the prior game will just wreck every Pokemon in the new game, right? Or maybe he just becomes totally useless or something like that. But I certainly I don't know. I don't know. I think they just need to stop this whole every new game has to have 100 new Pokemon or whatever. Like can't you just like make for me that's not the draw. I don't like they could have said we're not adding any new Pokemon and I would have still bought Sword and Shield. I would have still bought it. Like that like to me seeing a Pokemon that's a lawn chair, like I don't care. Like to me it's about getting immersed into the world, like having that experience where you get to go and catch the Pokemon and like maybe they could like expand the story more and something like that, but I don't care whether like there's already so many freaking Pokemon. I'm not going to catch them all. Like for me personally, I that's not what draws me to buy this.
I think a couple other things are silly also. They're making a complaint about the EXP share system. I'm gonna tell you this. When I last played Pokemon, I focused primarily on just one Pokemon, just because of the grinding you had to do to go back for the other ones. Like I had like maybe 1 to 3 Pokemon I highly depended on to get everything done for me. And it was annoying with thinking about having to go and level these other Pokemon just for this one particular gem situation. Like that gets annoying when you have to go back and grind like that. So
yeah.
I really like that you can pick like a setup of character or Pokemon that you can that can help like for almost any situation, and then they all level up at the same time, and it makes the gameplay flow a lot better.
I agree, but I think it should be optional, right,
Yeah,
to have that
th-
EXP share.
they
Like,
could
it
have a
was
veteran
optional in
mode.
the previous game, and so now they've made it not optional. It's just on and you can't turn it off, which is really a head
I
scratching
mean,
decision because, like Hat was saying, they're trying to satisfy more than one audience. And I could even understand if it's on by default and you have to go into like some menu, that to turn it off, or even if you have to turn it off from, like before you start a new game or something, because the people who want to turn it off will find where it is to turn it off. But
I
right now they can't. So
I agree on paper, but the human condition, the mass majority of people are not going to turn that off
I would turn
because
it off.
no one. Well, here's the thing: no one ultimately likes to grind more than they have to. I can tell you, as someone who played Final Fantasy 11 back in the day, that like you will find anything you can to make that grinding experience more pleasant and faster to get through so you can get back to the game. The
Yeah.
mass majority of people have this mindset. So most, even if they don't like the idea of it, they're going to keep that EXP share on because the game is ultimately balanced to have that EXP share. So it's going to be nothing but frustrating when you decide to turn it off. And then you're like, why am I punishing myself like this when I can easily turn the EXP share on and get all 6 of these Pokemon leveled
That's
up at the same
I
time?
I think that there's a value in the way in looking at it that way, and I do agree. I think that would be ideal for a lot of people, but it's so easy to have an option to turn that off that I don't see why. What's the big deal? And like, yeah, Pokemon's not already that difficult, so it's not like you made a game that was. It's not like you made like a super easy version of Dark Souls or something, right? Like
Mm.
Pokemon was always fairly easy, but for a game that's been doing the same type of game loop for 20 years, it would be I think it's a good idea not to restrict the way people enjoy your game, right? So I think there was some value in using that Magikarp that we talked about before, where the Magikarp can't even attack, but it's such a pain in the butt to sit there and try to level that thing up. But if you
hmm
do sit there and spend the time to level that thing up by going through the you know the the scary just like, is my Magikarp going to make it through this battle? Can they withstand another hit?
or even one
Because
hit.
yeah, or even one hit, and you sit there and like blood, sweat, and tears raise this thing up, and eventually like you get rewarded with this like awesome Gyarados. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like that's pretty cool. I think that's really cool, and I can see if people are like, now I can just leave Magikarp in my party and never use him until he's a Gyarados. I mean, I can see, I can see both sides. I do think that it would be nice if they had like a veteran mode or something like that, or a old school mode where like they didn't have that type of development system. But I don't think it's going to block me from enjoying the game.
Right. And I guess a little too late, like because this is just a concept that's just been a thing since the 90s. But I would have actually preferred if you needed some unique means to evolve the Pokemon beyond just simply leveling them.
Right.
Like I think there are some Pokemon in the game that you have to do special requirements to evolve them. Like you had to, like I know for Haunter the Gengar, I think you had to trade the Pokemon with someone else for him to evolve.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily that way, but like within the game that you don't have to like interact with someone. I think I like more that you use unique methods to evolve a Pokemon instead of just, hey, he got to this level, he's now this form.
Yeah, the Eevee, right, had the stones. Right, you had to use a different stone to change it to the elemental one, right? The Jolteon or the Flareon
Right.
or the Vaporeon.
Right.
And I think there was some you could evolve like using a moonstone or something, if I remember right. I haven't played Pokemon in forever, in case it's not obvious.
Yeah.
But
I know about red and blue, so I'm in the same
Yeah, I
yeah,
believe
you are.
Pikachu, you needed the Moonstone to evolve into a Raichu.
no, that's not right, is it?
The
No,
Moonstone?
I think Pikachu's just leveled normally.
No, I
But
think
I
you're
think
no,
in
let
the
me Google
yellow
this.
version,
I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm
you
pretty
could
sure
be,
I'm
but I
right.
don't think he was. I know in the yellow version of the game that the Pikachu um, couldn't evolve to a Raichu, but like the stats were much better on the Pikachu
So you needed
to
a
the point that
Thunderstone.
that went beyond a Raichu.
A Thunderstone, okay.
So
Okay,
what did you need a Moonstone for? I remember that. What did you Moonstone
was
Pokemon?
that like to get like a Dratini to like a Dragonite or something,
Maybe like a
Maybe, but
Clefairy?
or a Clefairy because that was like they were a fairy type Pokemon. God, they have so many freaking different elements.
so it makes fairy Pokemon evolve.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
okay. A Clefairy into a whatever. I can't remember
Okay,
the name of it.
You see, they should just like promote more cool stuff like that and evolution instead of simply leveling. And it sounds like they already do that a lot for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it balanced.
I just
And
I like the idea of if you use the Pokemon, they get experience. I like at the even like in like traditional JRPGs. Okay, like yeah, I know like Final Fantasy VII would did kind of implemented a similar version where like they would gain like half the experience points, but usually, you know, okay, if Barrett or let's say I don't know Final Fantasy X, let's say Lulu didn't do anything, well, she was still out there and at risk of like getting hurt. So,
Yeah, but she didn't take an action, right? So she didn't get
but she would still get experience
experience.
points. Yeah, but she was still at risk.
Yeah.
I still like that, but I think it just comes back to like either implement like Eric said, do a different way to still make it unique or strategic, or it's not Dark Souls, it's Pokemon. So
Right.
and I'll say this: when I never used, and the first time I ever played Final Fantasy X, I never used Kimari ever for anything. And when I get to the part with Byron and Yankee, he has
oh
absolutely nothing on him,
yeah, it
and
was great.
that was frustrating
It was great.
because he was too much of a wild card. Like everyone could do everything that I needed in the game, and Kimari was just there. And what I wish Final Fantasy X did was at least make it so everyone gets EXP at the end of the fight, but people who participated get bonus EXP.
Get more. Yeah.
Now, and like you mentioned this before, but like if they did it where the Pokemon you did use get a bonus, that would be a good balance. Which do they do that? I don't know if Sword and Shield does that, but I know the Let's Go games. They had it
Hmm.
where the Pokemon who did participate get more EXP than the other ones in your party.
Yeah, I don't like this, Eric. I gotta be honest. You're not convincing me. I would still play it the old way, but that's just me. That's the way I prefer to play it. I mean, if I didn't use Kamari the whole game and now I'm struggling, well, shame on me. I mean, and then I'll have to go grind Kamari a little bit and then come back. Like I enjoy that. I like that. I like the fact that in Pokemon,
I
like,
don't know,
okay,
man.
you're coming up on a water gym, and you don't have any Pokemon that are going to combat the water gym. Well, you should know the game. Like you're gonna have to go out and find some electric Pokemon to really like let you get the upper hand. I don't like none of this. Like let's just leave Pikachu in my party, but never use him, and he gets to level up the whole. It's not me. It's not me. It's not the way I prefer to play. But it's not gonna ruin the game for me. It's just a preference.
I think on a casual level, it'll motivate people to use multiple Pokemon instead of, like I said in the beginning, the only Pokemon I use were Charizard, I think like Gengar, and I forgot what the other one I used.
Yeah, but like you're gonna be at the end of the game, and you're gonna have like Pokemon that have evolved like twice, and you've never used them. Possibly. Like I like the idea that like you gain like that Pokemon evolves because you were super like personal with it. Like you were there. You trained that Pokemon. You individually trained that Pokemon. You didn't just like put it in the back row the entire game and like let it evolve several times. And now now that's it's a Charizard, you're just gonna plop it out for the first time and be like, oh, what's this do? Like, but that's just the way it's personal preference. Again, like I pre-ordered the game. I'm excited to buy the game. I'm looking forward to it. So it's not anything that I'm like purposely
I can tell you
hating
this:
on the game for.
I'm going to agree to disagree because I'm not going to. I don't feel like taking the time to level up a Pokemon I sure as hell don't care about just to get past one part of the game.
Hey man,
Yeah.
it's all about the strategy.
It's
To
personal
each their
preference.
own on that. Yeah, the good old strategy of having to just go out and just whack things over and
No,
over
man,
until
I
you
know
got
I gotta
something
go.
that can
I know I gotta
go
go
in.
through a cave. You know, there's gonna be some rock Pokemon in there. I'm not going in that cave until I have some water Pokemon. What level are they? Oh, let me get his butt out there. He needs to start leveling up. It's just one of those things.
And the
But
damn shame
anyways,
is that pick the water Pokemon.
yeah. But yes, but I do think warranted criticism. We can agree to disagree on that one, but I do think it's a little silly that they're not letting Bulbasaur and Squirtle be in the game.
That is odd if you just put Charmander in the game, because those are just like the fan favorites, right? I always think to myself, at least the fan favorites will always be in there. There's gonna be Pikachu and Charmander and Bulbasaur and Squirtle probably, but only Charmander's in there.
Yep.
Makes me think that Charmander's probably gonna be hard to get.
Yeah, well, they're gonna have Mew in there. That was another big one that like was from our generation, right?
Mewtwo coming back.
I'm not sure about Mewtwo. They have a whole little chart, but I think
Yeah.
I think it was just a odd choice because I think that like us, we assumed that most of the Pokemon that they were not going to put in this version were going to be some of the like obscure Pokemon, like that like look really weird and like well, this was a failed Pokemon experiment. Like let's not use this ever again. Like Pokemon, like people don't really care about. So some of these Pokemon are like, oh, that's a weird one to leave out.
I would have been just like go all in or go none at all and have none of the first gen starter Pokemon in there, or have all of them in there. That's such a weird conscious choice to just exclude Bulbasaur and Squirtle, but not include Charmander. Like I'd be fine if you had none of them in there, but I feel like it's a little like I feel like it's a little wrong not to have all three in there in some
Well,
way.
if they're
Oh,
not,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm looking at the chart, right? And yeah, they have like Oddish in there, which is like a little plant Pokemon from Gen 1
No one cares about Oddish.
who has 3 evolutions, right? It's like, why did you include Oddish in its 3 evolutions instead of Bulbasaur? They're both plant, right? Like, it's a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah.
Did you see Jim Sterling's video on that they removed Ekans from the game?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
he's
that was
really
great.
mad. It's like this game officially sucks.
He's like, but I'm gonna buy it anyways because I'm bored.
Yeah. So, anyways, and okay, let's not fool anyone here. If you're gonna boycott Sword and Shield, the moment you start seeing this game get like 9s out of 10s and stuff, you'll buy it.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's going to get review bombed on the user score for sure.
Sure. By people
That
that
seems
haven't
to be
played
the
it.
new thing these days for any kind of polarizing game. You go on to Metacritic and you give it a 10 or a 0, depending on what camp you fall into.
But
Look,
once
they got my Pokemon in there, so it doesn't matter. They have Gengar in there still.
see,
That's all that matters.
I've always been a Charmander guy, so I'm kind of happy about that. But if I had to choose between Squirtle and Bulbasaur, I would choose Squirtle all day. That's just me personally.
Yeah,
I think my wife would disagree with you. She would be Bulbasaur all the way.
Oh yeah, and according to this chart, Mewtwo is not in there, but
Where's the
Mew
chart?
is.
Where do you see that?
We have a link to it.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I don't see it.
I'll post it real quick.
I think I found it.
Okay.
Okay, I found it.
Yeah, they also have like Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite are not in the game according to this list, which is another head scratcher. That's like a pretty popular one. But maybe it is a balance thing. Maybe they have a new dragon type that's gonna kind of be the sought after dragon Pokemon.
They got Diglett and Dugtrio.
Yeah.
Coughing and wheezing are in, but not Ekans and Arbok.
Man, this is just bizarre to me. This is the thing. Like, it's not going to prevent me from buying it, but just some of the choices are a little odd to me. Like, if you're trying to not make people upset, like some of these choices, like it doesn't seem like they even thought about that.
Yeah.
Well,
is Magikarp in there? Let me see his Magikarp.
Yes. Magikarp and Gyarados are in.
Well, now I don't have to sit there and try to level them up. I can just leave them in the back row.
But there is no Mewtwo? But there is Mew.
Yeah, there's no Mewtwo, but there is a Mew.
After the 151, I don't give a damn about these. I can't name a single one of these.
If the next Pokemon game, if they didn't come out with any new Pokemon, would you care?
Included everyone? It included all the rest.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair. If the next Pokemon game, if I had all 878 Pokemon, but I didn't include any new Pokemon,
People
or
would still
like
buy it.
I would still buy it. And if the Pokemon game after that still didn't have any new Pokemon in it, I would still buy that.
They
Like
can do
dude,
they can
there's
do the
800.
Smash Brothers line, right? And say everyone is here.
Yeah, 878 Pokemon. I'm not going to catch all those Pokemon. Like, no, I'm not. That's way too much time for me. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. I'm not doing that.
I
So
tell you, when it comes to the new Pokemon, this the Surfetched one that's like an evolution of like the Farfetch'd
okay.
one. That's a really cool looking Pokemon. I do want him. Like there are some really cool looking new Pokemon here. Like there's the skunk that evolves into Gene Simmons.
Yeah, I remember that.
That one looks really cool. I want him in my party.
Yeah, he's
There's
got like
some
his tongue out,
weird
like his hat, like
Yeah.
kiss. Yeah,
some
it's
weird
funny.
evolutions of Meowth. Like it's not like his like more cat form. It's like his first form, but like in like more hairy.
See, these Pokemon actually, these new Pokemon though, I feel like these actually look very like creative and actually look like Pokemon. There's like some past generation of Pokemon where like it seems like they didn't really try that hard with the designs. Like, but these are actually like very interesting. And
There's a
like,
penguin with an ice cube head.
come on,
Called
man.
It's called
Ice
Ice Cube.
Ice tea or
That's adorable.
yeah.
Oh, I'm obviously going to do. I'm obviously going to start with the fire Pokemon of the game. It's called Score Bunny. I'm not going to tell the. I'm going to try to not spoil names or anything, but I'm looking at the last evolution of him. He looks pretty cool, I guess. Doesn't look anything too over the top. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Dude, I'm excited, man. I got this game pre-ordered. You know, I went to GameStop, I pre-ordered it, and it was weird. The guy asked me, he said, oh, right now we're running this special deal if you want to get Pokemon Sword and Shield at the same time. And I was like, I don't know, how much is it? And he said, $119.99. I was like,
How was that a
so
special deal?
Yeah. Well, the
$60.
difference is that it's in a single box
Oh,
instead of two
is that,
separate games. That's
oh,
the only difference.
I was like, that's not special. That's the same price as if I bought it separately.
I mean, I'm buying Sword and Shield on Friday for both me and my wife, but
Yeah.
like I didn't even know that existed. So I'm like, I don't care. I don't want that. Just get the game separately.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm definitely really, really excited. I don't think I'm going to go to the super late release to get the game. I definitely think I'm just going to wait till I get off work to get it, just because, you know.
Well, I'm going to start at the same time as her. So
Yeah.
if there's a 9 o'clock one, I'll go to it. But if the only option's like midnight, I won't go to a midnight one because we wouldn't play for more than like 30 minutes and go to bed.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I say this, but who knows? I might go get it and then end up spending all night playing it. But we'll have to see. But definitely, next podcast we'll definitely be talking about this more. Toby Fox, by the way, is making music.
Yeah, if we want to say something positive for a game that we're excited about.
Dude, I'm really pumped about this game. But Toby Fox is doing music for Sword and Shield, who's the creator of Undertale. That's pretty sick too. So
it's real. I mean, it's really cool. I love the theme.
Yeah, that's cool. He worked with Game Freak on their Little Town Hero game.
The game
right?
that shall
just
not be
recently
mentioned.
came
I hear that theme he made is probably is like the best thing about that game.
Toby
Oh.
Fox is the best thing about, yeah.
out.
I don't know. I've heard some people say they really like that game. So I haven't played it, so it's hard for me to say.
I hear
but
it's very mixed. I think that what I heard about it is that it's more complex than it needs to be in the battle system. Because a lot of people have said they played through a good amount. They still couldn't comprehend the intricacies of the combat. Like I haven't played it myself, so I can't say. But that's just what I've heard from people who have played it.
Yeah.
Side.
Anyways, let's a lot of drama with Pokemon Sword and Shield, but at this point, we're just gonna buy the game, we're gonna play the game, we're gonna try to enjoy it, and then we'll have to let you all know if the controversies were worth the hassle or worth all the hype next week when we come with our impressions. But let's move on to our next topic here. We have Square-Enix. Again, they've come out with another recruitment page and the announcement for another game that they're producing or working on. Last week, we talked about Business Division 3 and the image that they released, and it kind of seemed like it could possibly be Final Fantasy 16 or some other FF-related game. I'm still all in on that camp. Like everything we saw there, I think is for sure some sort of Final Fantasy game. It has to be. But this new game that's been announced for Business Division 1, which, if you're not familiar, Business Division 1, they do Final Fantasy 7 Remake right now. They've done Kingdom Hearts 3. They've put out a job recruitment ad already for another Kingdom Hearts game. We talked about that in a prior podcast. So they put out another, basically an ad and kind of an announcement stating that they were going to be working on a new IP, and it's going to bring action games to like the next level. That's typical Square speak. And yeah, they don't really tell us much else about it other than Business Division 1 is working on a new action game, and it's going to be a new IP. And this is kind of big because, Business Division 1, that means, Nomura, that means Katase. I mean, like some big name people. These are the people currently working on their top tier games, and so there's been a lot of speculation about this. And I mean, I got my opinions about this, but I guess I could just get into it here. But like all we've really seen is kind of like some literal translations from this, and like knowing what we know about Square Enix, I wonder if is it really going to be a new IP or do you just mean a new game? Because we already know that their Business Division 1 is working on the 7 Remake Part 2, which is going to cost a fortune, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they're hiring people for a different IP when
A
they
triple A IP too.
when they have Final Fantasy 7 on their plate right now.
And they're hiring for another Kingdom Hearts game. So that's a lot of money. And like when you think about launching a new IP, meaning like it's not Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest, nothing related, right? A lot of what goes into the cost that goes into that is marketing and promotion because people don't know about your game. If they were to announce Final Fantasy 16, they could just like drop a trailer, 60-second trailer on YouTube. It would get 20 million views. And every time the director like burped
we'd have
at
a 2-hour
McDonald's,
podcast about it. Right?
yeah, every time someone like did any kind of like scowl or anything, like they would be like, what does this mean? And like there would be so much talk about the game, like it would just not cost as much to promote that game, right? But a new game like from the ground up, no one's ever heard about, that would just cost a fortune for them to try to get that out there. And they already have this division working on another Kingdom Hearts game, a 7 Remake game. And it's just like, are they doing this? And like everything we know about Square Enix, I mean, think about it. Hideo Baba was working on Project Prelude Rune for Square Enix. And Hideo Baba is a very well-known person. He's associated with the Tales franchise. They closed that game down. They said, no, you're not making it anymore. And he left the company. Tabata, the director of Final Fantasy 15, he had his own game that he was working on. They shut that down. They shut it down. And he's a very well-known person. So like, it seems like they've always been like wanting to play it safe. And I think that if they were to come out with a new AAA game and Business Division 1 themselves, meaning Square Enix themselves, were working on this, it has to be some kind of spin-off game or like something associated with Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy, because I can't like Business Division 1's going to make a Horizon Zero Dawn style game like from the ground up. If that flopped like that, like they would just be, shareholders would be pissed. Like
Division 1 must be really huge to work on 3 games at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how do they have the bandwidth for this, right? And
Yeah.
if they do, why aren't those people all assigned to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 to get that out the door as soon as possible, right?
Oh, that could be a too many cooks in the kitchen type of deal.
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps. But
they did say they're collaborating with other people around the world, so I wonder if it's going to end up not being a AAA game, but it's going to be like a game that's slightly above the quality of Oninaki, and it's it's going to be something like that, and it's just contracted work. It's not like Tetsuya Nomura is working on it in any real capacity.
I want to throw just something crazy in there.
Okay.
Every company has kind of made their own Dark Souls type of game. Even EA's getting in on it with like Jedi Fallen Order.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think they're trying to get into that like 3D open world exploring type game? Because I've said in the past that they should make a game like Vagrant Story again, but like in the reins of like a Dark Souls type of game. Like, what if they want to hire a team to make a game like that, but maybe set it with like within like Final Fantasy like parameters, or like have like Tetsuya Nomura drawn characters to bring people in, or something like that. Make a that, or like you said, a Final Fantasy spinoff. That's like a Dark Souls like game.
It's gonna be like type next.
Yeah. I mean, some action games they've made in the past have been successful, so
yeah, maybe.
if they get the right people together, and if they said worldwide, then it's very likely they're trying to get a Western influence in their title.
Yeah. Obviously they're working on something. I just have my doubts about the budget, right, of this game. I mean, do they really have a $450 million project? They're just going to start from scratch, with these other things on the table.
If it's a new IP, they obviously won't spend the amount of money they would on a Kingdom Hearts game or a Final Fantasy game. Obviously,
even Kingdom Hearts, when it launched, had like tons of Final Fantasy characters in it. Like, they weren't going to come out the gates that hot.
Right.
I mean, I think even Kingdom Hearts 1 like was relatively low budget compared to Final Fantasy. I mean, it was still high budget in terms of they had Disney working with them to make it, but compare Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2, that's like everything was just bigger in Kingdom Hearts 2. So they obviously had the budget to make it bigger, better, more cinematic quality value, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they make like a Dark Souls like game, they can make like a lot of corridors and make a very contained open world that's not expensive to make. Like not like Final Fantasy 15 level where everything is open world.
So maybe like a 15-hour experience, but it's like very
But it's very contained.
okay.
And
like a Devil May Cry 5 type thing, or
maybe. Yeah, maybe. Or like it's just like every part of the area counts for something.
that could be something cool. I just wonder why Division 1 is working on this.
I think Division 1 is their biggest team. Like I think they're big enough that you can have them on multiple projects.
Dude,
Like
Kingdom Hearts and 7 Remake. Oh,
and this third game.
And clearly at that point, Division 1's not doing 16.
Right.
Because that would just be like off the charts, like just too many projects.
I think like even Kingdom Hearts 4 is only at its conceptual stage.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they've ever executed anything. If anything, Nomura's drinking cold medicine right now, trying to come up with the script for the fourth game.
Well, we all know he comes up with the script like a month before the game comes out.
He's like, oh crap.
He's got like a big dartboard and he's just like, oh, like each one has like a new plot twist. And he's like, all right. Anyways, well, I don't know. They announced, we talked about it earlier in a prior podcast, but they're recruiting for a new Kingdom Hearts game for HD consoles. So, and we weren't sure what that was going to be, whether that was Kingdom Hearts 4 or just some kind of re-release of older games, maybe remade again. I don't know. So
it's possible, but I think they're done with side projects. I think I said this in the previous episode, but one of the purposes of the side projects was to give the new team practice on making Kingdom Hearts before they make the third game. So I think they've
It's a
gotten enough
lot of
experience
practice.
under their belt. So they're probably ready to make a fourth game. And
Sure.
I think maybe even Nomura gets at this point that people are just frustrated with keep getting like side games instead of like a main title because they completely skipped the PS3.
Well, and it just makes it, yeah, that's
That
bad
series.
too. But it makes it difficult to get into the next game because it's so dense for like a newcomer to get into, for them to have to play like 7 games on like 5 different consoles, you know. So it's it's understandable if they're trying to get away from that. But I am excited to see what this new IP is, what it is. I feel like at this point, it's either this game or the one I'm still leaning towards the one we talked about last week with Yoshi P, or his studio at least, that being Final Fantasy 16, because we already know this studio is going to be busy with 7 Remake for the next 10 years at least. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways,
Stay tuned, I guess.
yeah, we'll definitely cover it. And then we have a final topic here, a Discord question from Valvedrix, who says, when you form your party in RPGs, do you usually pick them based on their usefulness, stats, and party balance, or do you prefer picking the people you like the most as characters because you either want to see more dialogue or just enjoy seeing them in your party? So basically, what do you base your decision on when picking your party members? Is it usefulness, likability, or maybe you like their dialogue, or during story sequences, do you feel like they'll be more satisfying with their dialogue? Like, what inspires you to choose the party members that you choose?
Now back then, when I was younger, I
Okay.
based it off who was the coolest looking,
That's
and I
not
put them in the
always
party, even if they weren't particularly
good.
useful or that great in the party symmetry or whatnot. And that was a bad choice because I remember Final Fantasy 9 back then. There was the part in the game where you send one team of people to Wellver, and then you had another team stay at Kuja's palace.
Mm,
And Kuja's palace is 50 times easier if you have magic oriented characters
yeah.
in there because you can't use magic in the Wellver. And magic is more proficient there. And then it doesn't really tell you that. But obviously I chose like the main 4 characters I like to use and went straight to Wellver because I didn't think you would have to go through Kuja's palace with those characters. So, that really bit me in the ass big time trying to get through that because I already saved over the file, so I had to make do with what I had. But now today, it's more about what's the best symmetry, who's the most efficient at getting through these, this certain part of the game. Like, and
Right.
I'll switch them in and out. Like for Final Fantasy 9 in particular, like I'll switch characters in and out depending if magic is more useful or physical damage is more useful in the fight. Like there's a lot of bosses in the game where they'll like hang in the back or go up in the air. And that gets annoying if you have a physical character because they can't reach them. So I'll pull like the melees out and I'll bring more of the magic users in and just like make that fight so much easier. So, in my head, I like to put the cooler characters in, but I know like the other side of me says, you need to put these characters in, not those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to go more towards story, I think, to be honest. So like Final Fantasy 12, I felt strongly that I should use Ash, and I felt that I should use Bosch, and I felt that Balthier were like the characters that I wanted to use. I didn't want to use Vaughn, even though Vaughn is supposed to be, if you use him, the best stats by the end of the game. I just felt like for story purposes, I wanted those characters in my party, and I do tend to go that route with my characters. The only difference I would say where I kind of veer from that is if the character substantially sucks, right? Like, even if they're like a really cool character, like if they're just not cutting it in battle, like I'll get rid of them. Like they're not completely safe, but generally, as long as they can hold their own and they're like usually one of the better characters and there's a story reason for them to be in the party, I'll definitely keep them in the party, I think. But even if it means I have to keep a character that's probably better out of the party, I don't mind. But Stan, where are you at on this?
I guess I'm kind of in the middle. Well, first, there are games where you have you have like a party of 3 or 4 characters, right? And then you proceed through like a dungeon or an area, and then like those characters chime in with their dialogue. In those games, I typically go for the story aspect, right? So like Chrono Trigger is a good example. If I ever go to the distant future, like I'm very prone to put Robo in the party, right? Just because
Right.
it's like this is where he's from, so it makes sense, kind of like in a story context, um, like you would want Robo in your group, right?
It
Because this is his time period.
increases the immersion.
Yeah, yeah. And then like prehistoric period, you would put Ayla or Isla, however you pronounce her name, in the group, right? Because she's like the leader of the human civilization living back then.
Yeah. The
So
the beautiful thing about Chrono Trigger is that there really isn't a wrong combination in the game because everyone has dual and triple text with each other.
mhm,
Most of the characters have a form of healing.
yep.
Like Frog has Slurp Kiss or a slip or like just Lick or something like that, and Ayla has Kiss and Marley has her healing, stuff like that. It's like you can't really go wrong with most party setups.
Mhm,
So like it's so easy to make a narrative party
yeah.
in that game. That's another beautiful thing about Chrono Trigger and why it's
Yeah.
the best RPG.
Yeah, and another thing to its credit that like we just said, Chrono Trigger, you can make your party based off either the narrative or how useful they are. And the thing I like about Chrono Trigger is every character is different. Like you can't go wrong with just about any team, like you were saying. But at the same time, all the characters feel unique, right? They feel like they have their own skills that they bring to the group that are more or less useful, right? So like, um, you've got the elements. Like everybody has the different elementals, right? And
Right.
then you have Frog and Marley or Marl who share like water and ice, which is considered the same element in that game. But then Frog has like more offensive dual text with Chrono, whereas Marl has more like healing dual text, I guess you could say. Their focus is more on healing and support. So it's like even if you choose that water element, well, then you got to choose which character you kind of want. You want more offense or more like defense and support focused character. Um, so another example is like in Xenoblade Chronicles. There's a
Hmm.
lot of different team combinations you can make that work.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Yep.
and because of that, you can swap characters in and out very easily, and you're not like punished or overwhelmed for doing that.
So are you are you saying that because the Chrono Trigger and Xenoblade Chronicles, because the gameplay is so well balanced that you don't have to make that determination over playability or usefulness versus likability, that you can just be free to choose the characters that you like for story reasons and not have to worry, is this character the best? Am I using a crappy character? Like there's no penalty for choosing a
Y-
bad combination.
Yeah, I guess I would lean more towards story, right? It's it's not an issue in Xenoblade Chronicles, but if it was the case that you only get your 3 characters and you have to proceed through a certain area and only those 3 characters will get the dialogue, that's not really a big issue in that game because typically the group is all traveling together, even if you can only use 3 at a time, right? So you don't miss out on a ton of dialogue.
Yeah.
So it, it's kind of tough because like some of my favorite RPGs are the ones you can have both ways.
Here's a true test. Here's a true test.
Okay.
Okay. When you guys play Final Fantasy VII now, do you still keep Aerith in your party?
Game Shark, baby, hell yeah.
But knowing what you know,
I do, yeah. I do for certain parts especially. Like,
okay, because I still keep her in my party all the way up to, her departure, knowing what I know, and the fact that I'm going to lose all that experience just because I feel like for a story reason, I feel like it just makes the game better.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's no real
and
gameplay reason to do that.
I don't anymore. First time I obviously did, but afterwards I usually have Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett in my party.
Really?
Hmm.
I do. I keep her in the party, but not all the way. So, like, if we're going to stop by Gungaga, the optional town,
Yeah.
right where spoilers, Zack is from, then she's in the party, right? Temple of the Ancients, she's in the party for sure. She might even be mandatory there. I can't remember, but where it makes sense, like she's there for sure. Probably like Gold Saucer and such, she's in the party as well. You know,
I find that I never have her going into the third disc for some reason. I never have her.
right.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII though is a good example of like, and that's my favorite game of all time. But it actually is not a very good example of making all the characters useful, in my opinion. You've got, because of your flexibility with the materia system, you can pretty much swap all of your progress onto another character.
I love it.
It's
Yet
nice.
we still never use Kate Sith.
Because
Yeah,
he's a
there's no
terrible
reason.
character.
There's no reason ever to use Kate Sith, and like you can also just like once you get Vincent, like never use Barrett again, right? There's no reason to, because
The limit breaks on Vincent make me keep Barrett in the party. Like I love Vincent and I like the stats he has, but I like the control. Like if you had control, if you could use the limit break or not, I would keep Vincent in my party. But the problem is when the limit break bar comes up, you have to use it, or you have to use other abilities like Death Blow or Magic
yeah,
and
I
stuff
think
like
well,
that. You can't use a normal attack on Vincent.
I think Vincent's a good example for me of a character that I would use, even though I totally agree about the limit breaks. I just thought he was a cool character. So
No,
I would use him.
if you put Death Blow on Vincent and use the really high accuracy gun on him,
yeah,
then yeah, that's a really good substitute
yeah.
for it.
I mean, it's just like you've got Barrett, Yuffie, and Vincent, right? That kind of their quirk is that their weapons are considered long range, but then and that allows you to put them in the back row and they take less damage, but they can still deal normal damage to the enemies through with their normal attacks. But you can get the long range materia and then apply that to any character, you know, or there's all kinds of various things you can do that kind of make all the characters very similar. And so, like, that's like one of my few knocks on the game is it doesn't feel like there's a reason to bring every character to every situation, right? Like you can play the whole game and never use Red 13 except where it's required, and you're not really punished as a player for not doing that, which some people like. But I kind of prefer Final Fantasy VI systems better, where you can really customize the characters with all the magic, but still they have some unique aspect to them,
Yeah.
like they have some unique skill.
Yeah,
And
that's
Final
pretty
Fantasy
much
VII doesn't really have that other than the limit breaks.
yeah, that's pretty much it. With seven is that their unique aspects are not enough um to warrant that. And I actually think that the remake is actually set out to alleviate some of those issues because you
Mm-hmm.
can see in the remake that um like it's so much more efficient to have Barrett or switch to Barrett to do take care of like the long distance like turrets.
Right.
Like I think they're intentionally making it so you make group symmetries
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more
and
strategic.
yeah, their more unique aspects come into play.
Yeah.
So if I can give the remake credit for anything so far, it's definitely that.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like they're looking to solve some of the issues the original game had.
Yeah. One last example is
Mhm.
Chrono Cross. Have you guys played Chrono Cross before?
Oh,
Yeah.
I've beaten it. I've beaten it like 10 times easily.
Have not beat it 10 times.
But that game has like 80 characters.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'm not using all those characters, even if they were like unique and useful. It turns out they're not, right.
Hmm.
Each character has an element kind of similar to Chrono Trigger, but then you're at the point where you have so many that there's not enough reason to pick one over another. It's kind of set up so you've
The
got
thing
like
is,
4 or 5 characters that all have each element, and there's 6 elements in that game. So you have a wide variety of characters you can pick, but there's no wrong choices, and that kind of makes them feel all the same, or
yeah,
very
the
similar.
thing
Go
with
ahead.
Chrono Cross is that each character does have a unique ability. The problem is that none of them are unique enough that you don't just put them in for the sake of strategic
Yeah,
element placing.
yeah. Those
And
abilities are all like, sorry, those abilities are all like deals white damage to the enemy, deals red damage to multiple enemies. Like they're not very.
I think the game would have been better. I mean, I love the game to death, but most of those characters don't need to be there. I think if you had a well-contained group of characters, like
Mhm.
it can be a little more than Chrono Trigger, maybe up to like 13 or 14 maybe characters. Because you do have you do have two different points of the story where you're separated from your previous group and with a new group temporarily
Yeah,
until it
yeah.
joins
So if you
together.
had like
So
Yeah, if you had like 7 characters from one world and 7 from the other, and then like Surge is like the one character that goes between that would be pretty cool, I think. But instead, you can recruit all these characters, and a lot of them have very flimsy reasons for joining you in the first place. So it's hard to say like, oh, I'm choosing them for the story or for their kind of uniqueness, because a lot of them don't have either.
Do you all find that is a weakness of the game? Like, does that detract from it? Because
um
I see people make, and I think it's less the case with Final Fantasy VI, where people make the case that, oh, there's like characters that don't even like need to be there, like they don't add anything, and but my thing is like, don't use those characters then.
the yes
Like,
and no. In one hand, that they're side characters from side quests, so you don't need to get them, and they don't affect the grand narrative of the story if you don't recruit them. Because the main important characters you have will always join the party eventually in some way, shape, or form.
right,
And but the thing that I don't like is that you can have anyone in those second and third slots, and they're going to contribute to the story
yeah,
with their own dialogue. And what sounds really weird is like I'll take for example the little girl version of Ayla. I forgot her name, but she's like the little cave girl that you find on Gaia's navel who joins your party.
Hmm.
If we get to the point in the game where we're all three characters are speaking in philosophical terms to and dialogue to each other, and she's contributing also, which is so ridiculously off. Like she's saying all these like big words and stuff, and they're justifying it with the system they put in where their mannerisms are implemented into the dialogue.
Yeah,
So she's going like the world and all these like crazy words and everything saying to it. I'm like, no,
yeah.
absolutely not. That's why I never put her in the party. I put people into the party that makes sense, which comes back to your point of view, Stan,
Hmm.
for this type of game is Chrono Cross is like the best example. I put in characters who make sense
Yeah,
to be in the story and to say things like this. Like Lynn is a character that makes sense. The Acacia Dragoons makes sense. Having Kid in the party obviously makes sense.
yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, that is a time you definitely go with a narrative choice over like a stat choice.
I
That
think.
game is just such a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish your
Well, I was
thought.
just going to say that game is such an odd case because it's the case where a majority of the recruitable characters are in that situation, like you said, like the cave girl, like where they're they're an optional character, yes, but if you choose to use them, then it kind of detracts from the story. So it's like, you've got like, let's say up to 20 characters that are like solid characters. It makes sense that they would be recruited and follow you on your journey like all the way to the end. But the rest seem to just join you like at the drop of a hat. Like, yeah, I'll join you and I'll follow you all the way to the final boss. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense that they would be there. So that does detract a little bit for me. I don't use them. I put in the characters that I like for the story purposes. But it is just kind of like, oh, why are all these characters joining me?
This is kind of this question is kind of interesting because I feel like Octopath Traveler kind of took that design philosophy and amplified it further to the point where the only reason you would have these characters in your party generally is for gameplay purposes, right?
Mhm.
Because the characters, there is no reason why they joined your party. There is no reason they're traveling together. They just kind of join your party and then they don't talk really after that, except little casual, optional, hey, let's chat, but it's never anything meaningful.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that and there's lots of different ways you can make a game in an RPG, but I think the optimal goal here is to make something where every character is useful in their own right, and you don't have to sit there and make that decision of, well, I like this character, like their story, it resonates with me, but I don't want to choose them because they're not as powerful as this other character. Like having a well-balanced party, I think, is ideal,
Mhm.
which is one of the reasons why I liked Final Fantasy X so much, because you use every character in your party. There's no selecting your core cast. It's
Except Kimari.
oh man, come on.
I use
just get-
Kimari when I
I love
play that
Kimari.
game every time.
You can
Kimari's
use Kimari if
awesome.
you want to, but there's no use for him.
Seed cannon.
Yeah, he has no
or whatever.
enemy that he's specifically strong against or anything. But
Yeah.
you can still do useful things like
Learn enemy skills. I mean, come on.
yeah, and move him over to Riku's path well before you recruit Riku, and then you can start stealing earlier.
Then you get Riku, and you're like, bye, Kimari.
Yeah, but I don't know. If you're one of these people that really just don't like Riku, you think that this was a bad character for this game, Kimari, come on, Team Kimari.
I think Riku's way too useful when
she breaks the game. There's this challenge that people do. It's called the no sphere grid challenge, right? So they'll beat the entire of Final Fantasy X without using the sphere grid at all. So the stats you have at the beginning of the game or whenever you acquire a character are the stats that you have for the rest of the game, and they're able to get through the entirety of the game and defeat all the optional bosses by using Riku's mixing abilities. So, and what it ends up coming down to is you having to hunt specific monsters, steal specific items from those monsters, so you can concoct all these different mixtures that'll defeat bosses and do 10,000 damage, over and over and over and over again, right? Riku, if you know how to use her, she breaks the whole game.
Yeah. Something I like to do when I replay the game is once you get to Luca, you can play a little bit of Blitzball and get some very useful spheres that help you move the characters around. If you're not doing the expert sphere grid, right? If you're doing the expert one, this isn't you don't have to really play Blitzball at all. You can get your characters around pretty fast.
Right.
But doing the standard one on the old PS2, when I replayed the game, I moved Kimari over to Yuna's area, right? And started picking up the null spells and all the healing and such. And I moved Yuna over to Auron's path and started collecting all those strength spheres because when you recruit Bahamut, when you get the Bahamut Aeon, he has an attack called Impulse that hits all the enemies. But that attack is actually based on the strength stat. And it's scaled very, very exponentially, I guess you could say. It increases very fast. And you can get that attack to do more damage than his overdrive, Mega Flare, very easily with just a little bit of strength added to Yuna. Because normally her strength stat is very low, but they need that impulse attack to still do decent damage, So it's has a very high multiplier. And then that way you can get to kind of towards the end of the game. Once you get Bahamut, he can just wipe all the enemies that you encounter. It's a little funny way you can kind of break the end of the game that way.
Dude, there's a lot of different ways you can tweak and play that game, and I think that like if you have to put an effort to break the game, it's not it's a way to play the game, right?
Yeah.
Unless you can do it within like the first hour, like Final Fantasy VIII. But like if it takes a lot of effort, like it's just a different way to play the game, and it makes it fun. So
Mhm.
That's just a matter of just really knowing the game stats
Yep.
and how the system works. Like for Final Fantasy VIII, you don't need extensive knowledge of the junction system to take advantage of it. It's so simple to exploit that anyone on a basic level of understanding can exploit that game, essentially. FF10 though, that's what you just explained is like no casual player is ever going to think of that.
No, like I didn't even think of it until I think probably at least my third playthrough of the game was like, and it was kind of just like, what would happen if I moved Yuna to Orin's path? That would be kind of funny, right? And see her like smack the enemies with her rod and just like do like thousands of damage. But then I started using Impulse and it was doing like 40k damage, when Mega Flare only did like 20k, and I was like, what the hell is this,
yeah. It's interesting how you can play around with that and see what happens. I've always, since the Zodiac Age has come out for Final Fantasy 12, I've been toying with the idea of, because you get that second job and it makes the game so much easier. I've been toying with the idea of doing like a total white mage run of the entire game with just all white mages, just or I want to do a as much as possible an only Pinello run. So if I could just use Pinello only in my party for as much as possible and just like beef her up with
Give
that
her all the
second job.
summons.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
dude.
technically impossible to use her the whole game.
Well, there's certain parts where you can't, but as much as possible. Anyways. So, yeah. I think that rounds us up though, guys. You got anything else?
Nope.
We were able to make more of that question than I thought.
Yeah, it was a good question.
Mm-hmm.
That was a better
Yeah.
question than I thought.
Yeah, that made me really think about it when you brought up Chrono Cross. I'm like, oh man, I still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Valdrex, you got to ask some more questions. But if you do have a Discord question or a topic suggestion, just leave it in the YouTube comments or just ask on our Discord server. There should be a link in the description, and you can join there, and you'll clearly be able to go on there and just ask some questions. But next week, me and Eric will be giving our impressions on Pokemon Sword. At least, I think both of us are going to be playing the Sword version, so that should be interesting. And yeah, we'll see what other news topics come up. But we'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening.
All right. Take care.
See you next time.